Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for turning in today. We are discussing about religions in Africa. My name is Emmanuel Hanipar. I'm talking to you from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And as you can see, there is a Bishop William on the other side, and we have two other guests as well. So today we are going to be facing the religions in Africa with facts and trying to figure out what can we do with religions. This program is not intended to blush or to discredit any one religion because that is not a part of this program. But we just want to see how much religions are very important in our people lives. So on this program, we're gonna look how we can maneuver around and still be able to liberate Africa or African people, but also keeping whatever we believe in and be able to come together despite we being or having a lot of religions. So the first thing I want to highlight is that uh, it's not only African people who are religious. Even people who are not African are religious. According to the research, more than 80% of people globally, they do identify to be religious. So that means they believe in religion. They are a member of one religion to another. So that makes more than almost like 80,000, maybe 98,000, no, 60,000, 80 million people actually who are actually practicing religion. So compared to 7 billion of people, so we have more than almost or way more than half of people who are practicing religions. Now, when it comes to Africans, African people are 80%, no, 95% are religious. So that means either they are Muslim, they are Catholic, they are Protestant, they are Orthodox, they are something they belong to religions, Hindu, Judaism, whatever you can call. So that is a very high number. You cannot ignore this much number when you are talking about liberation of Africa. And so for that reason, that's why we definitely have to face the truth of religion. And uh, also, I want to highlight what is the religions. Religions is there is what they call, let me highlight like a few major religions. There is what they call Western Catholic, Roman Catholic, which is what a lot of people knows. There is what they call Eastern Roman Catholic, which will be Orthodox. There is Islam, which dominates most of people actually globally. If you divide Christianity in pieces, you're gonna find Islam is the one possibly that is the biggest religion in the world. And then there is Pentecostal or Protestant. Protestant is divided in so many pieces. There is Anglican there is a Calvinist, there is a Emmanuel Baptist, there is Assemblies of God. There's so many in that area. And then there is Hindu, there is Buddhist, there is Taoism, there is a Scientology, there is Mormons, there is Seventh Day Adventists, there is Rastafarians, there is African religions, beliefs, ancient Egyptian religions that is still practiced. So there is so Baha'i religions, there is a Judaism, there is a Nation of Islam, which is kind of combination of like decent Christianity plus Islam together. So there is Nation of Islam, and then there is what they call Hebrew Israelites, which is not Judaism. Instead, is something that is more like for people who they define as Black people today. So all those religions are there, and many you cannot count how many religions are there. But there is another piece of religion that will never be explained. The religions, what we call invisible religions. So there is religions that are invisible. I think maybe someone here may be member of that. I'm not trying to offend you, but these are religion. The Freemason or Freemasonry, what they call Brotherhood or Princehold Freemasons for Black people in America and possibly around the globe, is also a religion. because according to Albert Pike, who was a member of that religion, it is religion. It is absolute religion. No one will lie to you and say that it's not religion. It's not. It's religion, and they have a place of worship, and they do all those required for religion. So it is religion. The divine nine is also another thing. It's very big in a black community. Divine nine, it means that there's a fraternity and sororities. You know the what they call Alpha, Kappa, whatever it is, they name them. There is what we call Black Bulle. All those are definitely religions. So those are religions, even though they may not come under the wings of religion. I just talk about the black ones, but also if you look like skull and bones of white folks, that is also another religion. Bahamian, Govi, whatever it is, whatever kind of crazy rituals they practice in California, that is also another religion. So there is also a religion of Satan. Satanism religions. It's not that open, but I have done some research on it. So it's another religion. There's so many religions you cannot condemn. It's like business or companies. You don't know how many companies or businesses are in the world, so you cannot count how many religions are in the world, and they keep coming. So now, what is the history of religion? I want to highlight this as well. So according to what I was trying to dig in, I found out the religions actually all started by white people, no, black people. Now we talk black, but before we were not called black. So we're called maybe Ethiopians, Egyptians, or Canaanians, or Phoenicians, or Sidonians, or Greeks, or Goths, or whatever it is, Gogs, or something like that. But now white man has come to on ground and is telling us that we have to identify ourselves as black and white. So black people are the one who started this kind of madness. It's not God. It's not God started any religion. There is no one single religion that was started by God. It's human started religion. So the first religion were created by the man called Nimrod in Babylon. Today will be maybe Iraq. So Nimrod was the son of Cush. He's the one who established religion. But not all religions, even those invisible religions I was talking about, like secret societies, he also established those. He was the first one. He also established governments. He also established the worshiping and sacrificing and all of those things. Goes the law, the culture, because religions always is good friend with so-called culture. So, so there is always the part of culture inside religion. That's why they don't deliver. But so Nimrod is the one who started kind of things like that, and then after that, people take on. So people from Assyrians take on, the Greeks they take on, the Egyptian they take on, the Ethiopian they take on, everyone, the Indians today they take on. So everyone take from that area and they start their own things, but with almost the same. They all similar to the origin. Now, religions have failed completely, especially when it comes to black people. They are disaster. They have failed to deliver. They supposed to take people to God, but they have absolutely failed to deliver. The religions in general, if it was something we give credit, we will be able to Mr. DZAPS, welcome. So if we will be able to evaluate and give you credit, religions will be put in a trash, all of them. They have failed the first thing that they claim to do, which is to take people to God. They are not. So they have failed in culture, they have failed in peace, they have failed in maintaining love and relationships. So they have failed almost in every corner. So now I want to open microphone to each one of you guys, since you have here about introduction. If you have anything to say about religion and how, if you have anywhere you see, we can handle religions, but still go towards our liberation as Black people, because the biggest issue we have, Black people, is liberation. So if you think that there is any way we can move around and be able to get to our liberation with religion, please take microphone.
Well, first and foremost, good morning to my host, Imani, and the fellow viewers that are here. I'm Bishop William Hawthorne of the Hebrew Apostolic Society, and I always count myself as a student first, never as a professor of religion, but still studying and count myself as a scholar in that regard. But let me just start out by saying that when we look at the multitude of religious orders and their faiths and their derivatives, many of those faiths initiated out of their different cultural beliefs and backgrounds from the many tribes that began to originate and spawn out before and during the time that Adam reigned up to when Noah started out. There were several different faiths and religions. And many of that was supposed to have been eradicated through the historical flood, which would have put Noah at the forefront of being the progenitor of the one new religion that would have been promoted or populated in his family. However, as always, we come to a day and a time where you have those who were Europeans who really didn't believe in a one God system. You have many who didn't believe in a one God system. Well, they were not monotheists, they were polytheists. And so when we go back in history and we begin to study, and from my position, having come out of Christian origins, having come out of both Catholic first to Christian second to Hebrew, there's much that I have gleaned and learned, and I do know that religion has had an impact not only on rulership but on moral and ethical principles that were supposed to maintain the culture of the community and the society in general. It was for the purpose of making sure that there was some adherence to the very fact that every individual in that particular culture got along, had a common understanding, and they understood that there was something greater than themselves. And that's what's meant when we read back in Genesis chapter 2, when it reads that Yahweh breathed into the nostrils of the clay form he created and called man, or Adama. And it says, and he became a living soul, which is that he developed a conscience or an awareness of his presence and the fact that there was a God. So when it comes to its impact, its connection to bringing us together as a people to operate and to function and to live together, religion has served indeed that kind of a bonding purpose for ethic and moral statutes. When it came to the spiritual preview, we look at religion and we see it from a perspective of the various types of gods or deities that governed certain aspects of life itself. The rain god, the harvest god, the god of the earth. Greeks and Romans had so many different forms of gods that impacted every aspect of their culture, from the messenger god to the lightning god to um, the god of the air. These gods help to provide a sense of autonomy so that they would begin to recognize they didn't have control over the air. They didn't have control over the sky, the lightning, the harvest, the rain, the water, you know, Neptune being the god of the water. And some of the planets that we have identified, that we've named, were named also out of these various gods. So today, because of so many variations of religions, so many different moral and ethic or ethnical upbringing, we've come to a place where people don't agree on religion. And I'm in agreement with them. I don't agree in religion. I agree in relationships. I am a monotheistic God believing individual in that there's only one God. However, even in the scripture, and I can't remember exactly where I read it, but even Yahweh mentions that of all your gods, you must acknowledge that I'm the God above all gods. And when we look at the Hebrew word that is used in Exodus chapter 3, referencing the God of that one God power, he's not just El, meaning the most powerful one, but he's also, when Moses asks, who shall I say sent me, he identifies himself this way. He says, I am that I am. And when it's translated Hebrew, it's Hasher, Hayah, Hasher, I am that I am. And so when you look at Hayah, which is the being or the existence, we understand that Yah, which is the short version of the expanded version of the tetragramma, Yod He Wod He, it means he that exists without the need of existence, the presence. And so when we talk about ethics, when we talk about values, when we talk about morals, when we talk about the law that was given to Adam, that was given to Noah, that was given to Moshe, everybody gets caught up on the one set of statutes that were given to Moshe. And Christians like to dumbify the statutes of the law down to just 10, because that's all they read from Exodus chapter 20. But there in the Torah, which are the 5 books, 613 mitzvahs or laws, commandments, and principles. And they're given to us to help bring us and guide us to a place where we learn how to conduct ourselves. So when we look at the politics, when we look at the rulership, any king that ruled that didn't have a spiritual guidance or a spiritual counsel to advise him on the spiritual pulse of his decisions ended up being a king that was wicked, that thought about only himself. And this is where I think religion and politics, even though we like to say the separation of church and state, there really can be no separation of church and state, because religion, or the fact that we have belief in a God, has a purpose, has its place in our political arena. And I think we need to begin to re-implement these types of principles, these types of statutes, these ordinances that were written in scripture, so that we can begin to get back to a government that's not corrupt, that's not about itself. And if we use it properly as a tool and not as a deitistic, pious, I'm above all men because I've been appointed by a spiritual head, we can come back to a place where there's balance, where there's wholesomeness in our governments, in our countries. Look at where we are today and how we've gotten here. I yield my floor.
Thank you so much. I don't know if I mentioned this, but there's one thing people do not realize when I was reporting religions. I think I skipped this. Atheism is also another religion. Even though people don't realize that, but it is another religion, because they tell you to believe that there is no higher God. And since they're telling you to believe, that means obviously that it is another religion. So anyways, my question was, I see you went down through the history of religion a little bit, and how they always mix with the governments, which it was actually the intention of religions, as I mentioned. The first man to create religions, which is King Nimrod, his intention was to not differentiate religions and governments, because he was a king and he wants to be to rule the people. So he established those things to put them together. But also, if you come from the Abrahamic religions, you're gonna find out that most of them too, they do. God always implement kings, he implement judges, he implement prophets. So it was always together. Even in ancient Egyptian, if you look careful, kings were called gods. So which is automatically tell you that in a politics arena and religions, it never be separated. Now, what do we really need to do? Because Black people, let me use Black people, but I can use African people, I can use people of color or whatsoever, Negroes, and all of those kind of names you are called. We are suffering in very big major. Whether we are Muslim, we still suffering. Whether we are Christian, we still suffering. Whether we are Catholic, we still suffering. Whether we are Nation of Islam or whatever it is, any religion we found ourselves under, is all based on suffering. So what is that? How can we handle that to the point we can liberate ourselves? And our people are very strong on religions, which I understand, because obviously that's how it's made to be. We are very strong on religions more than our salvation. We are very strong to be member of this religion more than to be free. So how can we maneuver around and make sure that we are free, but also people do not lose their religion?
Now, that is a good question. That is a good question. And I really think that when we're dealing with religion, we can't entangle the faith of our religion with how we live. I think that when we understand the teachings that are brought from each faith, we find that there is a synonymous unity that's present. It reminds me of King Artaxerxes, the Persian king, who said to Ezra, I'll make a decree because I've seen your law, I've understood your law. Your laws and your ways are prosperous, they're beneficial for us as a people. And so he tells his decree that those that refuse to learn this law, which will become the law of the land, which means that every person who is studying or living under his reign would have to know these behaviors, know this mindset, know um, this ethic and moral interaction as being humankind, so that there was a balance between all the people and everyone would get along. He says that if they refuse to learn it, if they refuse to do it, the law of Ezra's God and he, the king. So he lets it be known that first is the law of God or the law of Yahweh, and then there is the king's law. And so to me, he's saying, look, if you don't follow it, I'm either going to confiscate your goods, I'm going to be imprisoned, I'm going to exile you, or I'm going to put you to death. And I think that there is a order there that's by purpose, which means that if you offend the law and you disregard the king's order and command, that first we're going to give you the fining by your money. Most people are influenced when you hit them in the pocket. And if you offend again, then we will imprison you. And then if you offend again, we'll exile you. And if you return, bringing back your wicked ways, then to keep the teaching and the law pure and to set a fear before the people, we will execute you publicly so that the people won't get it in their minds that they can rule over and overrun our statutes. I think that we've gotten away from that mindset. This is where, the death penalty comes in, martial law. A lot of people says, oh, no, it's inhumane. No, it's not. I really believe that there are those crimes that deserve execution. So when we talk about bringing order into a land, when we talk about bringing a structure so that the people can grow, so that they can prosper, it should be God's law first, then the statutes that belong to the king. And the statutes that belong to the king should be those that favor the people. In Proverbs, it says that when the wicked rule, the people mourn. But when the righteous are in office or in place, the people rejoice. And I've taken a look at a lot of countries as I've traveled the world. And I can see a lot of people mourning, groaning, suffering because of wicked kings, violent kings, corrupt kings. And when we speak of kings today, we're not just talking about kings and monarchs, but we're also talking of presidents and political offices. So there has to come a movement, not a religion, but a movement based off of the laws of Yahweh, which many have adopted and they don't realize they've adopted the Hebrew laws. And yes, Islam, Israel, and the Christian faith, all are Abrahamic teachings. They all come out of Abraham, which is the monarch or the father of all of the faith. And when we speak of Israel, we have 12 tribes, but the promise that was given for salvation, the promise that was given for deliverance, comes down through the tribe of Yehuda. Now, here's the issue, Brother Amani. When we look at religion, they focus on salvation and deliverance through the Son, Yeshua. They call him Jesus. And I teach there is no Jesus because J is 500 years old this year, created by Mr. Trusant or Trusani, Gian Giorgio Tresiani, something like that. And the year 1524. Now this is 2024. So we can cut the J. I'm not going to get into a historical lesson on that, but we can cut the J. So when they start talking about salvation, when they start talking about deliverance, they're talking about from this world to the next world. But I say, but he also mentions on earth as it is in heaven. So why are we just focusing on heavenly issues when we're not focusing on earthly issues? To focus on earthly issues means, how do I bring deliverance to my people here on earth? And how and what does salvation look like to those people here on earth right now? Hands down, with all religions being considered, you know, whether it's Hinduism and and I want to just say with Mormonism and the Seventh-day Adventists, they're still counted in the Christian faith as well. They're still considered Christians. They consider themselves Christians in that faith of religion. And Protestantism, as you mentioned, being so many sectors, having subdivided so many times, it's become a head that has no singular polarity. And we need to find that singular polarity of that faith for it to really be a legitimate, single-minded religion. But everybody wants to get to heaven, but nobody wants to deal with the issues here on earth. And as far as I'm concerned, when I read scripture, it deals with how to be able to deal with the next man, how to build strong, good relationships, how to work with your own hands and establish businesses, how to govern your home and bring and raise your children up in the teachings that were handed down. And when we talk about salvation, it's one thing to have an understanding that, yes, when the time is right, we shall transition from this life to the afterlife. And that there are two states of consciousness that exist. That which is pleasant and that which is unpleasant. That which is heavenly and a bliss and that which is miserable, taunting, hellish in its nature. So some people say, you're already in hell being on earth. I say, yeah, but you can also be in heaven being here on earth. And consequently, heaven is supposed to come down to earth as a way, as a system, as a belief structure. So if salvation is going to be our saving grace, then we need to have the mindset, we need to have the training and the teachings that constitute the proper law that governs the people to be in good relationship with each other. And as far as deliverance, deliverance is that you and I, we're subject to our own devices or our limitations and training and knowledge and so forth. So it's not just religious deliverance and being delivered out. It's being delivered out of the hand of the wrath of God. Yes, that's number one from a religious perspective. But it's also being delivered from the bondage of our own devices that we put on ourselves, and we've bound ourselves so that we can begin to prosper and be productive, having the mindset that anything that I can do to help my brother, that's what I'll do. And as I do unto you, I expect others to have the same reaction or the same response to do unto me. So if I think only about myself being delivered and not about helping my brother to be delivered, I'm still in bondage. But when I begin to have the mindset to think about helping my brother to be delivered from his limitations, helping him, as I teach, we're only as strong as our weakest link. When we begin to strengthen the next man to help them to grow and to become strong, we become a strong nation because we become a strong people. And as a strong people, having understanding of the statutes of the law and how they work, we create deliverance among ourselves. We create salvation among ourselves. And we have to acknowledge that it's not man given, but it's given from the celestial God of Yahweh, the He that exists without the need of existence, the one God. And his son, Yahshua, was the example of what it should look like. So that's where we are. We're supposed to follow in that model of what it looks like. Your voice is not coming through. Okay.
Yeah. So you still have not really faced the question I ask you. Let me rephrase it. So the Christianity, whether it's Catholic, whether it's Anglican, whether it's whatever religions that existed, were a part of colonizing Africa, enslaving people, lynching people.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true.
and the Judaism too, this Western Yiddish Judaism as well. Now, Islam, you talk about Abrahamic religions, it was the longest enslaving our people. And people are still sucking everything from Africa. They are member of religions. I don't know if you ever see a Negro ranching program or party where people will have a cross and then they wrench people. They you know what they were doing on wrenching someone.
Let
And
me help you out. It's not wrenching, it's lynching.
yeah, lynching. Sorry for my accent. Yeah, it's
Oh,
not
no, no.
wrenching, it's lynching.
But I'm
Yes.
quite familiar with that because I've not only I'm 65 years old,
Yeah,
and when I came up, we still had lynchings going on. I still was a part of the discrimination, the the movement of the Black Panther, Stokely Carmichael, all of that came up through my era. So when we talk about the religions as you're stipulating and its influence in Africa, you're right. Africa had its own religions, and I did a paper, 2,000 Years of Christianity in Africa. But in the process, I uncovered not just Islam, but and not just Christianity, and not just Judaism. and I call it Judaism because the true Jews are operating in Israel, and I may get banned, but I have to just say that you said it yourself, the Yiddish, the Yiddish faith, the Ashkenazic faith, of being a Jew, which
Sorry
is
for a second. Do you know what the word Ashkenazi mean?
no, tell me, because I looked it up one time, and
It's
because
Germanic.
yes, it is Germanic. It comes from the
It
from
just
the
means German in Hebrew.
okay, because I remember that it descends from uh Japhet's generation. Ham, Shem, Japhet. So this Ashkenazic is the descendants of Japhets or Japhethians. Japhethians. I guess that's how you pronounce it. And so yeah, and what they did was they come in and they saw the similarities of their faith, their religion, and African religion. And so they said, aha, this is how we can come in and infiltrate the people. We study their religion. We see the commonality of the things that we believe. Now we come in and we introduce our faith to them as being the faith that's common to theirs. And then we begin to train them and teach them our faith based on their conduct and behavior. And that's what happened. That's how the infiltration of coming in and influencing Africans to convert to Christianity through missionaries, and the same thing with the Islamic faith. Although Islam came in with a more heavy hand, they came more with a heavy hand. They came in with what's that word I want to say? A ride or die type of thing. You either do it this way or you dead. And sometimes, even to the date, there are those who said that if you converted out of Islam to a different faith, that you would be executed. So when we talk the Ottoman, so when we talk about that faith of religion, the Ottoman church and faith being influential in Africa and all throughout, then we began to look at and begin to say, okay, we have all of this going on, and then we need laborers. Oh, and you got X amount of at this time they servants or slaves. See, this is how colonization began to come in. And we'll give you certain weapons or certain tools to use against your neighboring tribes that you're trying to usurp authority or champion or conquer. And in exchange, we just want manpower, labor. And it seemed innocent. But see, the difference is this. In Africa, there's a certain dignity that was handed down to the slaves. They still recognize them as people. But the colonial and those that came to the United States with slaves began to see them as less than human, 1/5 of a man. And they began to treat them as animals, as creatures and beasts, beating them, whipping the flesh off of them. If they didn't do what they told them to do, they'd kill them and then go get another one and replace. All of that in the name of religion. because religion was what brought us from Africa to America through the tribal chiefs. And here's what I'm saying to you. And when they came in and they began to sit down, they began to put the chiefs in a position of partnerships. And then when they began to decide they didn't want to go along anymore, they came in and with their force and brought those chiefs with their weapons under subjection, under submission, and made it be known, we own this land. This is our region. And I forgot to do my little bit of research, but maybe you know, when they actually began to subdivide Africa into different nations, because Africa was never a divided continent. Not from its origin, it was never divided. There was no Congo, there was no Ghana, uh, Benin, Togo. There was no Kenya, Ethiopia, Egypt in that regard. Even though it was in the scripture where we had those divisions, Africa in general was not all these subdivided where France came in and owned certain portions. Portugal came in and owned certain portions. Spain came in and owned certain portions. England came in and owned certain portions. And before you know it, everybody was beginning to speak with their accents and being trained in their language. And then when they discovered all of the resources, they began to extract the resources from the land and gain power, technological control, and they weren't paying back to Africa the things that Africa needed, Africa deserved. So in essence, they not only took the slaves from Africa and brought them into America and treated them less than human, but they took control of Africa and they began to treat them less than human. And the sad part about it is, and they trained Africans to in rulership to treat their own people as less than. Are we talking on that same level?
I'm listening, and I want you to tell me if people, even today, you say in the past, but we still having the same situation, because the reason why we are suffering, it is because someone is doing this. And as mentioned in the beginning, more than 80% of 85% of human globally, they are a member of one religion or to another one. And Africa is being exploited. It's been destroyed by people who are religious. And whether we can agree on this as well, that few of Africans are part of this as well. They are being used. They are getting paid a little bit, a little higher compared to average, but they're part of this. So how can we embrace our revolution? How can we fulfill our requirements, our duties, to liberate ourselves? And you keep quoting the scriptures. The Bible says that I will make you a head, not a tail. So, as Africans, how can we how can we how can we fulfill this? How can we start to be beggars and keeping these religions? As I already mentioned, most of religions that we are part of as Black people, obviously they are the ones who cause the harm. It's like Jewish people, for instance, apartheid in South Africa. Companies that were part of apartheid were owned by Jewish people. When you look on Congo, King Leopold, he was a Catholic. the one who cut the hands of most of our people, women and children. So I mean, how can we work around this? Because obviously I cannot come and teach my fellow Africans that you have to forsake your religion so that we can be free. Oh, no, definitely that would be useless because I'm not gonna win. Our people, as I said, we love religions because you are people of faith. As I was counting, 10 top atheist countries in the world. None of them is African. In Africa, we don't have atheists. None of them. So how can we be free? What do we need to do to work around these religions to be able to liberate ourselves? Like obviously, the problem is, for instance, in Kenya, in Congo, problems in Black American in the U.S. More than 80% of our people are in prisons. Uh, and how can we work on this? Forget about whether the religions are good or bad, because everyone is gonna come and say my religion is the better one than the compared to other one. So that's what we're gonna be on and on. We've been into this, but how can we focus on liberate ourselves and also keep our religions? Because, as I said, we cannot leave that alone. What is that we need to do in terms of religions? We have, for instance, we have in America, we have maybe TD Jakes, when Fred, what is it, and Oprah Winfrey. We have what is the richest people in America with religion? So we have a lot of them, as you already know. A big person there, yeah. So, and our people are suffering. They are saying nothing. People are in the prison. They are saying nothing. People get shot every day. Is like you say, lynching was something that in the back days. Now lynching is in the police, in the hands of police officers. So there is lynching going on still today. I already mentioned about prisons. I already mentioned about the poverty, extremely poverty. I already say about how black people are shooting each other. So, and those people are saying or are able to do nothing about that. So, how can we liberate ourselves and keep our religions?
Brother, I'm gonna tell you from what I do when I'm in Kenya and what I'm teaching. Because when I look at world religions and I look at the Christian faith, which is the predominant faith in Africa right now, with 63% of the country being Christian. And let me pull this up because I was very impressed with the fact that we had 63% of the population identifies as Christian, meaning that they follow a Christian God, and 30% identify as Muslim, meaning that they follow an Islamic God, and the remaining balance of a multitude of smaller, different faiths. But here's the thing that really amazed me. And I tell those that are from Kenya, just like I tell those that are in Ethiopia, don't you know that you're a Hebrew people? So I see the churches have always operated on an economic system. Give me your tithes, your tithes, your tithes, your 10%. And in doing so, the church has become wealthy. We know the Catholic Church and the priests and their so-called pious conducts, and many of them were doing looting, pillaging, sending out people, scribes and so forth, to rob from the poor or from those that didn't have, and bringing that money into the treasury. And that's the same thing I see today. I see that same behavior today of the churches pillaging, robbing, and bringing in the money, but it's never going out to the people. And I'm always telling my brothers and sisters in Kenya, I said, stop begging. Stop begging, because my scripture tells me that God said he would never see the righteous forsaken, nor the seed begging for bread, that he would make you the head and not the tail, the lender and not the borrower. If that be the case, then there's something that you've not been taught. And so I come in and I teach them a different perspective from the Hebrew origins of faith, because I let them know, first and foremost, Christianity, Islam, and the Jewish faith operate all on the same principle coming from the father Abraham. And if you understand the Abrahamic teachings and the statutes that he brought, it's not religious, but it's relationship. It's not religious, it's relationship. And so when we take it into our own mind that we're here to help the next brother, and I told you that earlier when I was speaking, I said that from where we stand today, and I do mean where we stand today, that if we don't understand that first and foremost, our goal is to help you become strong in your ability to do what you need to do so that you can grow. So each one is to help the next man. How do we do this without saying you got to give up your religion? Well, first and foremost, I tell you, like my bishop always says to me, you are autonomous, although we are all united as brethren. But in your autonomy, there is still that commonality of our brotherhood, of our walk together, that we must learn, that we must grow from. And when I'm looking at this autonomy, where we're growing, where we're coming from, I recognize that what I see in the churches over there in Africa, they've learned a bad habit. They've learned a bad behavior, where the pastors are thinking that the church is supposed to take care of them, and they're not understanding, hey, wait a minute. Even Paul was a tent maker, and he went out and he told the Corinthian church, look, even though it's my right that I should be able to receive from you these revenues, I don't want to come here and teach you where you're taking care of me, lest you tell somebody that it's because of you that you are sustained, that I'm sustained. No, I want you to see that I'm doing what I'm teaching. And he tells them in First Thessalonians, he tells them point blank, and I like what he says in First Thessalonians chapter 4. This is how we reach them without compromising. It's not about religion, it's about relationship. Okay, well, show me the relationship in the religion. That's how you do it. And he says, and that you should study to be quiet and to do your own business and to work with your own hands, as we have commanded, that ye may walk honestly towards them that are without, and that ye may lack nothing. That you may lack nothing. So if I look at the many people in Kenya, and I look at the many people when I went to Egypt, and I come in and I know several people in Ethiopia, many of them are not business owners. Many of them are struggling, working for someone else, only being paid monthly a set salary. And the truth be told, how can you survive in your faith, be justified when you're helping to make the pastor rich and you still struggling and suffering under the hand of your leadership, under the hands of those that you're supposed to be electing to put into office to govern for your benefit? How? So when you ask, how can we make a change? How do we change the narrative? The first thing is we got to bring our people to an understanding that you got to change your mindset. You got to change your mindset. As long as you got a religious mindset, you're in bondage. And that's where we're falling short at. You know, John 8 and 30, I think it's 32. It's one of my favorite scripture. It says, and I'm gonna quote it like this: and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And then at the same time, 38 or 36 says, and if the Son therefore shall make you free, ye shall be free indeed. Here's what I'm saying. See, the religion will put you into bondage, but the knowledge of truth that sets you or makes you free will liberate you. And one of those knowledges is economic development. One of those knowledge is social structure and social development. One of those knowledge is how to agriculture or husbandry, livestock, and grow crops and foods so that you live for yourself and live healthier. And we've gotten away from sabbatical agriculture, where you give the land rest on the seventh year. We've gotten away from, proper slaughtering of food and the animals, so that the brain toxin fear factor releases a chemical into the animal's body, which is not good for your health and your nutrition. We've gotten away from bringing leadership into accountability for their actions and making them subject to the people. We've gotten away from looking out and helping out our brothers and our sisters and teaching them how to be independent, to have businesses. That's what's inside of religion. Not all this going to church, all these saying these different scriptures that really mean nothing, because you go to church every Sunday or every Sabbath, you quote all these scriptures, you leave the structure of the building, you leave the presence of the other people that you were there fellowshipping with, and you come out still acting the same way. You haven't taught them anything, but you've collected the resources from them. Now they got oppressions with the bill collectors, but you can't help them as the pastor to bring them out of bondage, because you're a part of the system of keeping them in bondage. You're not telling them the truth. You're not teaching them the truth. So they're not being made free. And I always say to a person, if you make a man free mentally, you can bondage him physically, but he's still free mentally. But if you break a man mentally so that he loses himself, you put that man into bondage. And many of us are broken mentally. So in order to be made free, you have to restore the mindset of the people. Religion doesn't teach you how to do that. That's why being a Hebrew has more of a founding basis, because being a Hebrew teaches you how to unite the people, how to liberate the people, and how to edify the people, to bring them up, so that the weakest link is constantly being strengthened. If we get to that place where we learn that system, when we learn how to live in that way as a relational spiritual people that's not religion, you know. And I like to say this. Well, you say, well, what about being religious? Well, being religious is not good. Um, I wanna just read something about religion in the book of James, and I think it's I think it's right here. Let me see something. Uh, James chapter 1 and verse 25, I think it is. Let me see. So when we talk about religion, this is what James says. Mm-hmm. I want to get my eyes situated because sometimes that's 25 or 26. So, because I'm like this, don't listen to me, listen to the scriptures and let the scriptures be read. So it says, if any man among you seem to be religious and bridle not his tongue, but deceive his own heart, this man's religion is vain. Pure religion and undefiled before Yahweh the Father and the Father is, okay, before God and the Father, that's one and the same. So they're identifying Yahshua the Son here. But pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to visit the fatherless and widows in their afflictions, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. So he's shown us three categories or three definitive aspects that we should be considering. Who are the fatherless? Who are the widows? And when we talk about widows, we talk about true widows in their afflictions, and to keep themselves unspotted from the things of the world. And the things of the world is what? The lust of the eye, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. So when we're dealing with those things, we're looking at how we can become relationally solid as a people and not religiously bound by religious ceremony and practice and false traditions and false doctrine, which lead us astray and make leaders in the church rich and well off, but the people still struggle. They can't always come to the pastor to get a helping hand. And I was telling someone the other day, they were saying, "Oh, we don't have any food to eat. Can I lend them some money to help them out?" And I told them, "I'm not going to sit up here and pray for you. I've given you money before, but if your commitment is not with me, you need to go to where your commitment is and make them accountable. So if your pastor is your pastor, you need to be going before your pastor. And if he tells you let's pray, you need to tell him prayer ain't going to help. Faith ain't going to feed me. I pay my tithes and my offering to you as a member of the church. How about you bring your people together that are supposed to be the church, and everybody hears what we got to say, and we solve this issue of me being hungry with my children. Now I'm impressed. Or better yet, how about you give up some of that money you've been collecting every Sunday from the offering out of your pocket and help your people? Now I'm impressed. But if you ain't doing that, I'm not impressed. You're a liar. Your religion is a lie. I don't care if you're from the Muslim faith. I don't care if you're from the Judaism or Jewish faith. I don't care if you're from the Christian faith. If you're not following the principles, you a liar.
Yeah, so thank you. I see Mr. Alula is online. Greetings,
Yeah.
Mr. Alula.
And there's another person there.
Alula,
Brother Rob.
I think he's occupied
What's
something.
up?
Hey, my brother.
How y'all doing?
All is well. And Misty Trinell. Did I say that right? Misty Trinell?
Like she's not answering. So anyways, moving on, I think, I don't know if Arura has anything to add on that. We're still working on the question of how we're gonna handle our liberation with religions. As I mentioned, more than 95% of African people belong to one religion or another one, either Islam or Catholic or Protestant or Anglican or something. So now, Bishop, you highlight about what you teach people, but that is another religion as well. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you guys have a bank that is under your Hebrew religion? Do you have a hospital? Do you have a shop or grocery? Do you produce any food? Why do you think your religion is different with Catholic? Why do you think your religion is different with Seventh-day Adventists? Why do you think your religion is different with Mormons? Why do you think your religion is different with the TD Jakes religions? Why do you think that what you're teaching people is better than the other things people been swimming in for centuries now, and we haven't seen any results when it comes to the change of our life?
No, hold on. It's not about me thinking that I'm better than, but there are certain things that I've observed from the Mormons, from the Catholics, from Judaism, from Islamism, from Seventh-day Adventists. There are certain things that I've observed. And those are things that I glean and say, you know what? It's a good thing. Yes, we have a bank account. And we're growing. Yes, I've been trying to get the people to come to an understanding that first and foremost, each one of those religious faiths that you mentioned not only have soup kitchens to feed the people, but they also have brands. They also have businesses that are being populated by their members, whereby they are empowering their members to become entrepreneurs. And this is something that I advocate. They also have pantries so that when their members are lacking food, they can go to them. They also have clothing banks so that when folks need clothing, we used to call them, in my days growing up, we used to have hand-me-downs. That's what we called them coming up in our days, where the clothes that were still good and wearable, but were no longer able to be worn by the person that grew out of them, they would pass them down to the next person. And so we all had our own a set of clothes that we would wear, and it eased the financial burden on our parents. But all of these religions, they have these different effects. And the thing that I like the most is that I've observed that the Mormons have a certain brand, and they buy that brand to support their faith. And that brings in revenue into their ministry. The Jewish, they have a brand. They call it kosher. They got their markings, and they buy that product, and the money goes right back into their churches. Islam, they have a brand, and they buy their products, and it goes back into the bank in their community. And what they've been taught is what I'm trying to teach, which a lot of Christian churches aren't teaching. Because if you actually look, the only faith that doesn't have a brand is the Christian church. They have soup kitchens, they have clothing banks, but they don't have a brand for foods that they produce or market. And so they fleece the people with tithes and offering. That's where their money comes in. And that comes from the teachings of the Catholic Church. Because you don't find a brand for the Catholic Church. But they got clothing, outposts. They got soup kitchens. They got job training. They got all types of other services that I commend them for. And they're only starting to come into awareness now of these economic vices or tools that can be utilized. So, yes, we as the Hebrew Apostolic Society, we are teaching that this is what needs to be established. I came into Kenya in 2019 for a conference that I gave, and I told them we needed to establish our brand, the HARP, which stands for the Hebrew Apostolic Royal Priesthood. And that brand would be supported and purchased among the communities that were a part of our memberships, so that we could generate a revenue, so that we could begin empowering people and putting them into businesses, so that as we put them into businesses, then they could in turn pay back. And then we could then help another person or two. And the multiplication would be, we help one, then we help two, then we help four, then we help 8, then we help 16, and it grows. And that's where the vision began. However, Kenyans and Ethiopians and many of the other countries that I've gone to have a mindset that when an American come into their country, this is a rich white man, and they're supposed to put their money up and get all the money they can from him or her. That is a pauper's mentality, a poor man's way of thinking. And as I said before, I am now stuck on having to change the mindset of many of the people that are there, because until they come out of this mindset of getting what they can from outsiders instead of doing what they're supposed to do, as what I read in 1 Thessalonians, to work with your own hand, to do your own business, to study, to be quiet, stop being busybodies and running your mouth. And if you call yourself religious, then look out for the homeless or the fatherless. Look out for the widows in their affliction, and to keep yourself unspotted from the things of the world, which means that you don't do those things that everybody else is doing. But that's a hard pill to swallow, brother. It's a hard lesson. It's easier to influence you with religious antidotes and get you convinced on charismatic, services and sway you with persuasive speeches. I don't want to persuade you against your will. I don't want to influence you against your will. I want to educate you so you make an educated decision. Thus, as it was said, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, not set you.
Yeah, so in closing, those who just come in, this is the New Africa Network. We are discussing about how we can liberate Africa with religions. And it's been questions around, as you all know, we African, we are a member of religions, different religions. And most of us, more than 95% of African or African descendants, together, we practice religions. We are people of faith in general. So the last question is gonna be about in the past, we already look into that. All religions have committed someone disturbing me. Let me see. Okay, so all religions have wronged us. And according to what I see now, even still today, our religions are now willing to come together and try to unite our people. Instead, they want us, we all African people, to be member of their own religions. If I talk to someone who's a Catholic, who practices Catholicism, they want me to become a Catholic. If I talk to someone who is a Baptist, they want me to be Baptist. If I talk to someone who is Muslim, they want me to become Muslim, Sunni Muslim, or Shia Muslim. If I talk to someone who's Orthodox, they want me to become Orthodox. So we don't have, obviously, everyone is trying to grab and to get members, even though all those religions have done nothing to liberate our people at all. So do you guys think that we need to establish a movement that is outside of religions, just to focus on our unity, the movement that can go in all those religions, because our people are in all those religions, so we can actually be able to unite and bring our people together, even though despite they may still have religions. Again, microphone to anyone, and this is going to be our last question.
Free the land. This brother Jamil Lamont.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm Brother Jamil Lamont with the Provisional Government Republic of New Africa, conscious citizen, and chairman of the Republic of New Africa Grassroots Mobilization. I am a Shiite Muslim. To be more exact, I'm an Islamic Revolutionary New African nationalist. That means I'm a Black nationalist and an Islamic revolutionary at the same time. To address this issue that you just put on the table, first thing I want to say is this, that Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, three monotheistic world religions, have both, like you said, been abused to Black man, woman, and child, and have raped and plundered Africa and enslaved its people. And each one of them have blood on their hands. And right now we can see today basically in the Sahel region that there is Islamic terrorism by the fundamentalists waging war against what is basically Muslim states. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are predominantly Muslim. Over 90% in Niger and Mali, and 63% in Burkina Faso are Islam, but yet they're being fought by Islamic fundamentalists from ISIS and so forth. And we have the same problem coming over in Sudan, which is going to outbreak in possibly a new war. So this thing that you said about how can we come to unify, should we go outside of religion and become atheists or whatnot? I don't think that's the case. from the beginning of time to now, there's been a war between good and evil. And that war will last, that is an eternal war. And it basically boiled down to the men of good and righteousness fighting against the men of evil and bad. And those are, you have bad people within the faith also and outside the faith, the faith systems. And so the thing is, I think it's most important that we have an interfaith dialogue in forms where the good men of the world, of whatever religious background or faith denomination, come together as a united front against the bad men in the world. Because God is on the side of righteousness, truth, and justice, and good will prevail over evil in the end. And there are universal truths that goes throughout all religions, right? And men of decency and understanding can interrelate and interact with men of other faiths and don't seek to overcome them by force or brutality, and can respect that and live in a world of peace and harmony with this diversity of faiths. So I think that's the better approach, is to look at it between good and evil, between good, bad and good, and that there's in that each faith has been corrupted, and that there is good in each faith, and that we should stand based on that and come together based on that, our interfaith dialogue, working together as the good men of the world, fighting against the bad men of the world, so that good will prevail over evil. I yield. Black power, freedom.
Brother, and I agree with you 100%. You know, that's basically what I've been speaking about, all from everything that I've touched on from when we opened up to now. So you really came in and hit it all in the head with one great big old good speech. And as far as religion is concerned, I always say it's not about religion, it's about relationship. And the hardest part is building and bridging unified bounds of relationship of good men, because now we're dealing with people with their own agendas, and it's hard to find unity. The last time we had anything unified was early 200s, when Farrakhan did the Million Man March, and I'm sure that you're familiar with that.
Yes, I'm absolutely familiar with that. Farrakhan is one of my inspirations from a Black nationalist perspective. Although I don't follow his brand of Islam, I respect the man and would put my life on the line for him. To say the Million Man March, we do need another mass movement and unification of the Black man, woman, and child in America. The way Black folks are in the African Americans are in the most key position towards world affairs. We dictate United States foreign policy if we come together. We're in the belly of the beast. We saved South Africa. South Africa would still be under apartheid if we hadn't come together and speak out on South Africa's behalf. Cuba is still under a 60-year embargo because Black Americans ain't said we ain't taking it no more. Haiti is being manipulated and being invaded by a UN invasion force, and
Kenya.
And that's because Black America haven't come together and demanded that they treat Haiti right. The AFRICOM is plagiarizing, militarizing Africa, and we see the scramble for Africa between the Europeans and the Russians and the Chinas. And Black Americans don't come up and intervene, then Africa is not going to be able to deal with that alone. Marcus Garvey was right when he said one aim, one God, one aim, one destiny. our destiny is tied together across the Atlantic. Africa ain't gonna be free if African Americans are enslaved. African Americans ain't gonna be free if Africa is in bondage, or we go back to neo-colonialism. And that is the way Africa is sliding backwards, except for in the Sahel region. But those brothers and sisters who are advancing Pan-Africanism in the Sahel, they have a Herculean task of dealing with Islamic fundamentalism coming from the right and U.S. imperialism coming from the left. And then you got Senegal, Ivory Coast, and Chad. They want to do intrudes with the French against their own brothers. This is not good. And we got, I'm skeptical of brother in the president Akundu and Nana Addo in Ghana. I can't tell what he want to do. His Ruto done showed his hands that he gonna side with the United States. Ramaphosa is contradictory in South Africa, but you know we have to come together, us in the United States. And I've been working on this front. I have Brother Sipaway, the foreign minister of the provisional government in Guinea-Bissau, and he's been working on the international level with the brothers over there, trying to unify and push what we can on the global scale with the Pan-African Federalist movement. And, you know, dealing with this conflict of religion, because I just left Zambia early January, and I can see the growing spread and diverse religions across Africa, and it's not necessarily a good thing. But Africa has a cultural unity, and Sheikh Anta Diop referred to that in his book, The Cultural Unity of Black Africa. And we got animist religions, in addition to the basic monotheistic religions, the African traditional religions. Trying to bring all this together, we have to look at the core and the essence of each faith system, because there's something eternally true in man that transcends religion, the different religious denominations. When we go back to that our original nature, we can find common ground. Whether we call it a truth principle, that inner truth that we all can sense when we close our eyes and we can feel it, or we hear it in our subconscious voice, or we can call it that inner sense of justice or humanity. We have to go back to that core basic principle. Some may call it Ma'a or Ubuntu. And stand on that. These Pan-African and African values is for Africa. And find that relationship, that brotherhood, and that fraternity, and build on that, and overlook these religious divisions and the people who take advantage of religion for selfish purposes, for purposes of political, for power, to just agonize power to themselves. You know, people they use political power in government, and they use power in religion. These are the same thing. Abusive people with abusive personalities. They're sociopaths. Well, I ain't gonna say sociopaths, they're psychopaths. You can have a fascist that's in a religion, and you can have a fascist that's not in a religion. You can have a person who suffers from a Machiavellian, manipulative, and cunning complex in a religion. You can have a person who has a Machiavellian, psychopathic personality outside of religion. He's still a tyrant and a dictator and oppressor, right? And religion ain't gonna stop him from being that psychopath. He's gonna be a madman regardless, huh? So when we're dealing with, it goes to dedication to those basic principles of truth, justice, and righteousness that's represented in Ma'a, in Ubuntu, where we are a whole people, a community. And we're not based on retribution. We're not based on isolating other people or self advancement. I am because we are. We are because I am. That communitarian, holistic, looking at the world, looking at the local, the city, the state, and the international. We have to come to that. And that's why I put out the call for Haiti. The Ubuntu Peace and Reconciliation delegation of Dr. Eric Connor, P.L.O. Lumumba, Julius Malema, and Timbala, the Prime Minister of Burkina Faso, go to Haiti on an Ubuntu Peace and Reconciliation mission to it's a real life example where you can implement African principles to solve a crisis in an African nation where the people are suffering from a humanitarian disaster and a civil war because of Western values and imperialism. I yield. Thank you for your time.
Well, you're right on task with that, brother. And that's why I come back and say that with everything that we're doing, when we come in from a religious perspective, we need to be in a position to liberate our people. Because as I said from the very beginning, and you just eloquently stated, Judaism, Islamism, and Christianity are all monotheistic under one faith out of Abraham. And I tell people, I'm not a Christian, I'm a Hebrew. Because when they identified Abraham, they called him the Hebrew. And that only means that he is a descendant of Eber. And when you understand the meaning of Eber, which means to cross over, and that's the premise of the basis of the Christian faith, crossing over, going from one plane to another plane, from one boundary or habitation to another boundary or habitation, from one kingdom of darkness to the kingdom of light, from being unrighteous, crossing over into righteousness. And as we know, being righteous means doing the right thing. And that's a problem with many folks. They don't understand how to do the right thing. And that's what religion has done. Religion has come in and it has brought division. It has taught deception and deceit and lies under false umbrella of different ideologies. But the principles that we are to follow, the principles that are there in the scrolls, in the books, in the annals of the history of the sages, of the scribe who wrote these words of wisdom and knowledge down, that we would be able to receive them and have something to reflect upon. They were given to us for the specific purpose of building relationships. And that's what we need to go back to. And as you said, until we learn to be a people, to come together, that's what true religion is. And that's where we need to be.
Yeah, so that being said, I think we grab a lot of information from Mr. Mohammed, but Abdul, no Mohammed, Abdul Latif. And I want to, yeah, I want, if I butcher your name, don't worry, please. Yeah, but
It's okay.
I want to say something. You know, the word you say, Ubuntu, we were discussing about this before, it means is a Bantu word which is used in many places. You may hear people pronounce it a little different. There is some people who say Ubuntu, which is still spelling the same way, so it would be Ubuntu. And people say Ubuntu. In Swahili, we say Ubuntu or Mutu, Watu, which will be human or one individual person, a human being, pretty much. So we are not trying to unite religions. We are trying to liberate Africa. We're not trying to do, because you cannot. Religions is completely, I think most of religions have lost its own way. The basic things, which is actually the humanity, they failed that. They, as I said, they often they are part of oppression that Black people will face. So I think that we're gonna end this program with this. We Black people, we practice all religions. Whether there is Hotep or Amhotep, the ancient Egyptian religions. There is those who worship Wakayoko here. There is those who worship Nzambe in Congo, which is where the word zombie actually came from. There is those who worship the Yahweh. There is those who worship the Jesus and the Muhammad. So many all religions actually came from Africa or African people, I can say. So we can yes.
I think that saying that we should not be trying to unite religions and that was not what I was saying that we need to do. When I say interfaith dialogue, that means having the ability to function and live together and have interfaith relationships. Now, in order to do that, we have to have mutual respect for the people of different faiths and different belief systems. Now, as I said, there are corrupt and bad men in every walk of life that's going to take advantage of the weak or the opportunity. And the only thing to stop the bad person from doing evil is checked by a good person standing in his way, ready to deal with him and keep him in check. There has to be a system of checks and balances to maintain an order of truth, righteousness, and justice against evil and corruption that will take over in a vacuum. So the systems that we have to establish is the legal systems has to be set up in the enforcement mechanisms on the nationwide level, the continental level, such as the African Union Court of Justice and Human Rights, or other mechanisms have to set up and be able to mediate these differences and impose and enforce those standards where there's respect. Because you have certain nations that have mixed legal systems where you have customary law, Western law, and Islamic law all going together in one nation. Like, for example, Nigeria. You have Western law, you have Sharia, and then you have African customary law. It's a mixed system, legal system. So across the continent, nationwide, you have to have a mixed legal system where each different group, faction, and religion is able to practice its faith with relative freedom while maintaining respect with the other faith and nobody stepping on anybody else's toes. That is interfaith, mutual respect, relationship, and you have to have a system that's respected and authoritative that can maintain that order, or else evil people will gain power, corrupt that system, and create mayhem and mischief throughout the land. I yield. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, so let me come and give you the announcement. So if nothing changed, you guys should keep your heads up. This coming week, we're gonna have two interview, possibly with Mr. Barbecue. Mr. Barbecue, I think you guys know who I'm talking about. The gentleman from Haiti. This one here. You guys can see that, right? Are you guys there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but no, we can't see anything. It just says double click to enter full screen, but
okay.
you're not.
How about now?
No, did you click on what you wanted to showcase? Because you were showcasing something earlier, but now we can see it.
Okay. Yeah, so this gentleman here, if nothing changed, so I may have him in our program. The first program is gonna be to interview, to ask him questions. The program is gonna be, of course, in French and English and Kiswahili language. And then the next interview is gonna be to people who will be on program to ask him questions. So So what is going to happen is that people who will be on our program, they will have a chance to ask him questions, and then we will translate those to him and also to Kiswahili language. Our intention is that Swahili-speaking people, possibly most of them being Kenyans who send their children to Haiti, they will be able to interact with him, ask him why is he doing what he's doing, but also to have some point of views of who he is and what does he want, and why should the children lose their lives in Haiti. So that would be the whole purpose of the interview and the question section. So that being said, I think we've been in air for too long. I do appreciate it for Mr. Abdul Latif Jami. Jami in Kiswahili, it means family. And Mr. Alura, Alas Alura, of course, and Sir DZAPS, and of course, Mr. Bishop William, to be with us for this program where we're discussing, trying to cover as much as we can the deepest topic, which is religions among African people. When I say Africans, I'm talking about Black people pretty much. So may God bless Africa. May God bless each one of you. I will see you on next one, maybe on Thursday or Sunday.
So when is this meeting for barbecue coming in?
I believe it may be on Thursday if nothing changed, but I will keep you guys updates. If otherwise, it would be on Sunday like this.
This coming Sunday or this coming Thursday?
Yeah, one of those two. So if it's on Thursday, the next question day will be on Friday. If it's on Sunday, the next question section will be on Monday.
Okay, you're gonna put the link in the chat like you did this one, right?
Absolutely. But also,
you.
anyone who has any question, you know my number. You can always reach out to me. And I think this video is gonna be uploaded on Swahili for Africa on YouTube and other platforms as well. As you can see on my username, that is how it's gonna be posted. And the preview ones too are online already.
Now let me just get a point of correction. You always say Mr. Bishop. a double address. It's
Mr. Bishop Williams.
Yeah, it's Bishop.
Okay.
Bishop is one title, Mr. is another title, and Bishop is the office that I hold for my fellowship. So
okay, yeah. So title like Bishop. Okay. So anyways, you know, English is my last language. So I studied everything, and then
I'm just point of order on the fact that it's not Mr. Bishop, it's just Bishop William Hawthorne or just Bishop Hawthorne.
Okay. All right.
In Kenya, everybody calls me Bishop Wills.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be more easier for me.
Okay.
Free the land. This brother Jamil again. I hate to keep holding you on. You say you in Kenya, right, brother Swahili?
No, he's in Ethiopia.
Oh, okay. I thought he was in Kenya.
No, but I'm on my way to Kenya November 20th, and I won't return until March the 21st.
Reason I asked is because I had put a copy of my call, posted a copy of my call and my call for Ubuntu Peace and Reconciliation delegation to go to Haiti. I put a copy of that, posted it in the chat, the New African Network chat. And I was hoping that if he was in Kenya, he can relay it to brother PLO Lumumba, because he's one of the brothers I think would be eminent persons who would be best to be on that delegation to Haiti. Because barbecue has been calling for dialogue over and over. And Gary Cornell and the Transitional Presidential Council have been refusing his attempts for dialogue. And they're doing it because they believe that they want him to surrender or be killed, right? In his forces, the G9 revolutionary forces to either surrender or be killed, and without being given a right to sit at the table because they were citizens of Haiti also. These people who were made gangs because were made into gang members by the people who are in the government in the business class right now. All you did was put the same people back in power, right? Same politicians and same business class that created the gangs back 10, 15 years ago back in power. And now you want to lock up and kill the gang members who you created to keep you in power at the beginning, huh? And that's hypocritical, right?
Yeah, so for the question, if you want to address Pierre Lumumba, I think we have contact. We can contact or reach out to him directly. And I have people also in Kenya. In fact, even those guys who are YouTubers, the top YouTuber in Africa, his name is called Tunacheki. If you watch on our WhatsApp group, he's in Kenya now. But we also have one girl, she's in Kenya too. We have a lot of people there. But we also have, I think, me and Eugene and other folks in the New Africa Network. You have a direct contact with Pierre Lumumba, so we can reach out to him. Or you too, you can try your best as well. But I'm not in Kenya. But if you have any information that needs to be delivered, I can definitely facilitate that for you.
Okay. When you get back to the chat, can you send me your contact information in a private directly so I know exactly which one you are?
Yeah, sure.
I know you know me.
Yeah, I think you are in our network, New Africa Network, right?
Yes, I'm Jami Lukman.
Okay, yeah. So definitely that would be very easy. I will reach out to you, and you know my number too. Is the one that start with the one that send the links anyways on WhatsApp group.
Okay, I appreciate you.
All right. So that being said, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. May God bless Africa. Mungu ibariki Africa. Tutaonana wiki ijayo. Kwa heri.
Kwaheri.